Yeah. Okay. Live both on Facebook and on the YouTube. Peace, love, and coconut oil family. Welcome to another installment of Melanated Empire, where we rise in consciousness through reasoning and deliberation. Obviously, past few videos, family, have been discussions between, Rastafari elders and metaphysical brethren, still, trying to bring about that knowledge within different perspectives. You understand? And this evening is not going to be any different because we'll be touching upon um, with knowledge of self, does one still need to worship anything external, be it a place, person, or thing? And for this night's reasoning, I mean, you already know we have the elder. I'll bring in the elder first, still, Yes, Ras Eisen, who has been with us for the past 2 or 3 sessions and giving thanks for his wisdom and even his fortitude still going through in the Rastafari order. Peace and love, Rastafari Eisen. Give thanks, my brother. Welcome to another segment, the Melanated Empire.
Yes, I give thanks again. Yeah, interesting reason and one that I man definitely look forward to, not just because of the exchanges between we the one who actually involved with the discussion, but for the sake of other people who having thoughts, both sides, you understand, and would be seeking clarity and so on. Our reasoning these things out to a fine point, I think will go a long way in assisting other people on the path, either which way, you know.
Fox man, Fox
Yeah.
man, powerful, powerful. Okay, and I'll bring in the Grandmaster Imhotep still. Welcome, my brother, to another reasoning. Give thanks for your presence with us. How's everything?
Yeah, family, peace, love, and light. All is well. I obey the laws and the laws obey me. So, no complaints. Yeah, man, it's always good for us to engage each other, to stimulate critical thinking. And for me as well, it's a good learning experience, to learn from the other ones and ones them as well and things. So, it's all positive vibrations.
Powerful man. Give thanks, man. And we have a new speaker or a new, Benjamin we bring in on the panel as well to join us in the reasoning from St. Lucia still, my island, a brother I've known for a while back still, he goes by the name of Prophet Manai. Yeah, so give thanks for
Yeah,
your
man,
presence
but
with
give
us.
thanks still. Yeah, man, give thanks, man. For life, health, and strength still. Yeah, man,
Sure,
the
man.
mighty life giver and the keeper of life.
Sure, my
Yeah,
brother. Give
man.
thanks, man.
Been watching the show, so, yeah, man.
True,
Hoping
true,
to give a
true.
little contribution, yeah, man. Elder
All right.
Ison, glad to be in your presence still, Elder. Yeah, man, I respect still.
May tell the man there
Yeah,
the
been
truth.
watching the eye
Respect,
still.
respect for brethren.
Sure.
But honestly,
Yeah, man.
I am trying my very best to get accustomed to being addressed as an elder.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty much inwardly still the youth.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah, man,
But
no
give
doubt.
thanks, give
Give
thanks
thanks.
still, I mean, love and
Yeah,
respect.
man.
Full circle.
Yeah, man.
All right. Give
And,
thanks. Give thanks, man.
and sometimes the elder don't really have to do the age. Sometimes if the
Say
man,
it.
Yeah. You go out there. You go out there, man. Are we getting muted?
Yeah.
Yeah. You were muted, man. But yeah, I mean, I'll go through and start the vibe still. We're missing. We're missing a few. We're missing a couple more speakers. I think the computer just tell me one of your mics are unconnected. Yeah, but so we give thanks again. So tonight's reasoning, as I said, is going to be about knowledge of self. So I think first we have to define what is knowledge of self. We're going to give everyone an opportunity to describe knowledge of self and what it actually means to them, and ultimately build up to the second part of the statement, which is, can one worship an external, something externally, if you say you actually have knowledge of self? So the elder, don't want me to call him elder, so let Ison go through we going through how I'm saying it, trying to go clockwise still. So Ison, you can go through and give your deliberation on that still. Muted Ison.
Respect, sorry. Yeah, well, I don't have a textbook definition for what this knowledge of self is. For me, it's really quite simple. It's simple, via my understanding, and that have to do with my journey and observing my own transformation. You understand? Self, first of all, we have to interpret self, because self apply on a couple of levels. You can refer to self in your person. You see, and you can refer to sense in a group. You know what I mean? And then you have the ultimate self, you know what I mean, in the prime mover. Jehovah's are what we call God and all these different terms. To me, by the nature of the human being, our definition is with that energy, that life energy, which we refer to also as spirit. That's where our identity is. And that energy doesn't have variation in quality in and of itself. Variation will come in the personal expression or one of that energy, in a conscious sense. But in and of itself, it doesn't have variation. Qualitatively, it is one thing. You see? So for me, knowledge of self is like just to come to know yourself as not as the flesh, as you're accustomed to identify yourself with from your birth come up until you reach a point where you get some awareness, spiritual awareness. Only then that we usually start identifying ourselves with the spirit. And so we will say things like, we are spirit having a human experience. Jehovah's. So for that essence, that thing that is the spirit that we refer to as the spirit having the human expression is the self. And that is not a personal self. That is a universal self. You understand? So for me, to come to knowledge of self is to come to understand that and the nature of it in terms of how it expresses itself through human behavior and these things. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Self really is the universal self, not the personal self. So when we talk about knowledge of self, for me, it is about becoming aware of your true identity in that universal self. So
Give thanks, man.
That's my definition. As I say, I'm not textbook like with this because I learned this via my own transition internally. I observe and I speak to it in my own words, in my own understanding of it.
Give thanks, King. Well, that in itself was powerful still, even being a definition for your own experience, and it was powerful. Next, I'll let Imhotep go through. Don't know how you would address the topic, if you want to break it down first on what is the knowledge of self, or if you would just throw in the second part one time in your deliberation.
No, yeah, man. I just want to speak about that aspect, the knowledge of self. Right? Yes. So let's break it down a little bit. Whereas my brother Isern, yes, he broke it down. So pretty much it's like me adding.
You sound a kind of way, Imhotep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you sound Yeah, trying to let the bedroom sort out his mic and things still. Give him a little moment. If he's not back in a few seconds, I'll let Manai go through with his bill. But that was beautiful, Ison, man. A fundamental point you said I wanted to touch upon is the not personal self and is the universal self. But I'll come to that. Imhotep, what you think? Imhotep?
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Am I better now? Does it sound better?
What do you think, Ison? You think it sounds better to me? I still. You muted, Ison. Mute, Ison. Yeah, you muted. Yeah.
It still have the glitch. You're hearing the glitch, the little sound.
Yeah, like we hear a little sound or something.
And his voice is not clean.
Like last time, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me just.
Yeah, and give us a moment, family. We're trying to get the vibe right for you. So when we just take off like the airplane, you know, we're able to study nothing. But tell you what, while the Bedouin is trying to fix that up, Manai, I'll let you go through with your bill in regards to the title of the reasoning and what's your take on the knowledge of self. Just unmute yourself, Manai, and you can go through. You muted, Steely. Let me help you. You muted, Manai. Manai, stick to AA. Hey, Ison, it seems it's me and you that have to go back and forth on the reasoning until everybody sort out themselves. You muted, Ison. Muted.
Yes, I.
Yes, sir.
Well, as you may reason with even Ted, I didn't realize, I thought we're just going to deal with let's look at the knowledge of self at first.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not even bother to touch the other part.
Yeah, I had to leave the other part for later on in the reasoning.
Okay,
but then when someone has give the explanation, they just tie up everything in one still, you know?
Oh.
So yeah, you know what I mean. But in
There's
regards
a
to
couple
myself,
of things in both side of the topic that we have to deal some definition.
True, man. Okay, look, the Bedouin is back. On knowledge of self.
You even look better, Rasta.
All right. How do I sound now? How do I sound?
No crackling, but you're still a bit low.
All right.
No crackling. Yeah.
1 second. Let me.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was saying, man, I agree with your perception in regards to the definition of knowledge of self. In regards to it having primarily to do with understanding yourself, self-reflection. Bedroom trying to think. Yeah, in regards to
the journey to it is what makes you bring the consideration of self down to your personal. How you've been behaving, how you've been thinking, all these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because self just have definition and a couple of levels, you understand?
True. But then you said is a universal self and not a personal self. Now that is very important because when we're speaking about the self again, are you referring to your physical nature or are you referring to that spiritual aspect? You understand?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, the spiritual aspect is encased within that physical nature still. So in my view, it would have to do part and parcel with both of them, right? Let me hear you now. Let me see.
We'll explain. Yeah, we'll go through some reasoning on that.
Yeah, man. Imhotep?
Yeah. Are you hearing me clearly now?
Yes, King. Well, speak again.
No issues.
They continue. Let you go through. Let him go through. I'm hearing him.
Yes, I hear you.
Am I clear? Am I clear enough?
Not really, but perhaps while you're speaking, it will probably fix up itself or something.
Just speak. If it gets worse, we'll just indicate to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So as we were speaking in relation to knowledge of self, right? You know, it's pretty much like in the ancient African spiritual system, the elders or the ancients would say, man, know thyself, right? So when we speak about knowledge of self, we have to look at, two words. Knowledge, which is, comes from the word gnosis, and gnosis is a science. So knowledge of self is pretty much the same as the science of self. Um, how does one know thyself? To know is to experience. So man has a threefold nature. He is matter, what we call body. He is spirit, what we would call breath, and he is soul, or what we would call consciousness. So that's a threefold nature of man. And I mean, everything is interconnected and interrelated. As they would say, one person with multiple divinities. So when we're speaking about the self, it has to be the material self, it has to be the spiritual self, and it has to be, the mental or the soul or consciousness. So when it comes down to knowledge of self, it's more of us applying, through direct experience, our threefold nature. So I just want to, say that in addition to what my brother Isern said.
And when you say the threefold nature, I think I missed that one. What is the threefold nature?
The
The body.
body or matter,
Yeah.
spirit, which is the breath or the
The
life force
breath
energy,
and the
and
soul.
the soul, which is consciousness.
Consciousness.
All right, facts. Give thanks, man. Powerful. All right. Um. So yeah, I mean, so far we have no
Yeah,
no.
he do justice by making the connection between the threefold. Love
True.
that particular the particular addition, as he say, to what I have said, because that is the intricate part, and that's
True.
the part that cause us to go seeking through religion and different form of ritual. That's what
True.
caused us to go through these things, go through these different levels, go through these internal battles with your old thoughts that still want to maintain dominance within the body, and your positive thoughts, you aspire towards these positive things. And sometimes you get undermined in the process. Sometimes you make wrong choices in certain moments and these things. So what Imhotep touched on in terms of highlighting the different aspect really encapsulate the fullness of it. You're seeing? I guess as we go along, we can, make reference to some of the intricacies. These are the parts that I'm particularly interested in.
True.
Why I even always making reference to thought when talking about metaphysics, more
Now,
so than the anatomy.
okay, look, man, I come back. I think he was having some issues there. He come back on the scene. But what I was saying, right, it would again lead up to what Imhotep was saying, because you mentioned the universal self and not the personal self. Meaning that self you identified would be the spiritual aspect of the individual. Because remember, we broke down the word individual, um, would be that unitary particle of that universal self. But then when you said not the personal self, I can add a little thing with it, Let me bring Manai back on the scene. Welcome back, King. Add a little thing with it because I seen the personal self, which would I still identify as the body, and the universal self, which is that unitary particle of the divine consciousness, right? I seen like it's interconnected, really. You understand?
I,
So
I,
it
I would agree.
yeah. So the bedroom drop out again. So yeah, so ultimately in my view is like while while the end of one may appear to be the end of life, I mean having the knowledge of the three bodies, as the bedroom say, or some would just call it two really, would give us the knowledge of where our ancestors even wrote down the eschatological text. meaning texts to say, you know, what they think happens after life, after we transition. You understand? So, in my view, the physical, which would be the avatar or the body for that soul, right? Combined and copulated with the same breath, which is the same spirit, to me would really define that self, that complete self. And
Yes,
it's true one.
definitely in manifestation, right? But you can also reason about them, setting them apart, because one has a specific nature about itself. The other one doesn't come with those limitations. You're in a complex situation where a side of you is limited and subjected to what they call the laws of relativity, right? Subjected to these things. A side of yourself, which is what we refer to as the spirit side or the breath side, that is of the absolute. You see? Because we know clearly, okay, as I reason in the past interview, you can go and meet a body on the ground, examine that body, all the organs good. This person look to be a super healthy person, but then there's something missing from it. We can look at it the same way that we can see, okay, the body there where we know for sure spirit is not present. We can speak to them to the best as we can, as language would allow. We can speak about them in their individual context. And also, as Imhotep string them together, overstand them as they work interrelatedly. You know? Respect.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, brother Isern. I just want to add a little bit to what you said, because truth be told, we are spirit in matter, conscious of itself, and that's where our threefold nature, expresses itself, because life is consciousness. Life is also infinite and eternal. So what we would term to be death is really stagnation and inertia, because in actuality, there is no such thing as death. Just human terminologies that we apply to that which is inertia or stagnation. So since we are, souls, so to speak, having a human experience, we would consider ourselves to be one person with multiple divinities. Just want to add my brother's Ras Isern statement.
True.
I saw when you began to give that deliberation, I saw Ison smile because when you say, it's all about thought really and the universal consciousness really expressing itself, even as matter really. So
Here give me the how should I put this? Here give me the academic language to it, and it's beautiful. So you bring out these smiles.
true one. Mana, yeah, you have been dropping in and out. I'll let you give your take on the knowledge of self and what it means really to you, But you're muted still, so unmute and you can go through.
Yes, something just don't want me to.
Just one touch, unmute and you're good. You was unmuted. Yeah, you're good now.
You hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, like Ras Ison would say, is I don't think that conversation is a textbook conversation, because to me,
Wow. You muted again and your service dread, man. Oy. Yeah. Yeah, you unmuted now. Yeah.
right. I was saying to me, that's not no textbook, yeah, example we could give, like Ras Eisen was saying, man knowing themselves is like is an ongoing thing to me. Yeah, and it have different levels to it, to the way I understand it. Because if we have to watch it on a holistic basis, we could use two things. A man could say, well, his self is his real self is his inner self, meaning not his organs and his parts of his body, but what we call in the same spirit and soul, right? And what I see going on in the conscious community still too, because of the levels of understanding, we all dealing with people that have different levels of understanding. What do I mean by that? In the sense of, someone would say, the spiritual, we have a spiritual self and we have a physical self. And the spiritual self is like, in the conscious community, when you check it out, everybody seems like the spiritual self is higher than your physical self, which I understand where they're coming from. But there's levels to that understanding, because if one has to think that his spiritual self is higher than his physical self, is to me still coming with that whole religious kind of connotation, in the sense of, you're not really respecting the physical. And on a next level, I would see it like, because to me, and to just even take it on a next level, just even on a theological level, just to clear that up, to a certain extent, we come from a basis where, to me, that's I was just telling a brother that I'm watching the oldest set of understanding of even a God concept, right? And when you watch it, it's like the old Ethiopian Bible, and we have chematology there, right? And when we watch them, it's like you've seen pictures of human bodies, right? With, animal heads or whatever, but it's still physical bodies, right? People will say, well, they're principles and they're not real beings, and I understand all that. But what I'm saying, even the Ethiopian Bible, when you watch it, there's that Ethiopian Bible with just pictures on it also. So it's just, we understand that symbolism to a certain extent. But to me, and then we leave that, like, let's say, like, that's what people saying as the oldest understanding to a certain extent. And then we left that, and then we gone into Judaism and Christianity and Islam. And when we get there, it's like God became a spirit. That's how I'm seeing it. I'm back to like a Rasta understanding. It's just like I'm giving us a simple chronology of the understanding of theology on how I see it, on my level of understanding, right? God became a spirit. Allah cannot be a human being. He cannot poop. He cannot, these kind of things. And then now we get to now where we have the 1940s now. Some new what people will say religion, but movements to me came about. Which movements am I talking about? Rastafari, the Nation of Islam, Prophet Noble Jew Ali and the Moors, right? And all these examples of movements, they say now, God is no longer spirit, is both spirit and flesh. He's trying to bring a balance. If you all get where I'm coming from, we come from that watching the symbolism of literal human beings with animal heads, regardless how we see them, if they weren't literal beings, like we know, like people say they're principles and whatever. But I'm just saying, you're still seeing that kind of humanized figure. Now, to me, I understand that the spirit, like you say, the same way people say, like, your soul cannot die, your spirit can die. If you understand your physical still doesn't really die. It's like matter, you're going back to the planet, because you, if you understand, you are Earth, on a deeper level. And all right, so that's on a theological level. And on a biological level now, knowing oneself on a physical level is still a good thing. You don't need to go to a doctor. You could just go take a herb because you know how to cure certain parts inside of you. That's understanding. That's knowing yourself also. Knowing your inner self, not just the spirit, that level of spirit and soul, but your inner biological self with your parts and your organs and everything. Because most of us saying we know ourselves, and we still have to go to a doctor to tell us what to do. I mean, if you really know yourself, you're supposed to be, so there's levels of understanding of knowing yourself. It's a self-growth within the whole understanding. So even with the worship of outside yourself, you see somebody like us, we saying, I'm Holy Emmanuel I Selassie Rastafari. I see that as in our time,
Yes.
That's the name which resonates, you know, with nature for me, right? It's not just about the physical man too, because the physical man, we could talk about the physical man, but I'm just saying the name just resonates. And to me, where we're coming from, we just getting to know, it's like we're in the world of knowledge. Before, just 10 or 20 years ago, the best book you would get was some book maybe that, you know, that not teaching enough about philosophy. You couldn't get too many books on even on our island. I could talk about that maybe 20 years ago. So now we're coming in that information age. So knowing yourself is a growth. Because for instance, I could say we are walking periodic tables, you know.
Yeah, I'll give an expression a chance to build still, you know. Let me pass it over still. Yeah. I don't know if Ras Ison or Imhotep
So I
have
don't see no
anything
problem with somebody
to take on
praying
the
from out, you know.
yeah. I don't know if Ras Ison or Imhotep have something to say. Oh, Imhotep unmute his mic, so I'll let him go through. So you can mute your mic, Manai, and let the bedroom build. Let me see. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah,
No, I nothing. You're safe, King. Let's mute him.
Yes, family. So in the esoteric occult world, they say that, you know, there are 3 keys, and it is self-identity, self-knowledge, and self-revelation. You know, it is also important to understand and master the law of organism, as my brother Mani says, because it doesn't make any sense that we can intellectualize the philosophical teachings, but at the same time, you know, whenever we have a disease in the body, we cannot address it, or we don't know, you know, what's wrong. Our body is a vehicle for the expression of, you know, consciousness. It is also a vehicle that spirit uses. So, you know, none is above the other. The moment we start to say, you know, the spirit is higher than the body and the soul is higher than the spirit, that is when we are thinking in a fragmented mindset, because everything is interrelated, everything is interconnected, and as such, all is one.
True king, true king. Yes, I. True thing there, you know, Imhotep, well stated differently. As I man say earlier though, everybody take a different really in terms of how one respond to this. Everybody highlight different aspect of the totality of it. You understand? So I guess you can say that everything reach full circle in that sense, you know. I would only just wish to say, well, in all and I utterances, right or wrong, it is more easily said than done in terms of walking that process of coming to knowledge of yourself, you know. Their intricacies, you know what I mean, their test even down to how your appetite with the girls, them. I mean, it affect all kind of avenue of your expression, you understand? And so having some understanding about what the inner process involved will definitely help you to understand what's going on as you walk through the particular experiences, whether you err or whether you just make a hopeful and positive decision in your going forward. You see, and so definitely there where the rubber hit the road and there where all the complication come from. You understand? Even as we are now considering whether having this knowledge of self is conducive, my word, with observing a symbol. And this is the way I'm going to put it, because that is the overstanding, the natural overstanding to me when the gesture is made towards His Majesty. It's a symbolic one. If you look into what a symbol is, you'd most likely see the first thing in the line of definition to be person. Then it will tell you objects. And it even tell you words. Even words are symbols. You understand? So
Yeah, man, give thanks, man.
Yes,
Yeah.
I. No,
Um,
I might just me want for just add that in terms of when I apply the term symbol in reference to His Majesty. I believe we make a world of a difference, right? Where you're working from in your understanding. You understand? I mean, one man can look on you when you say Selassie. One man can look on you and tell where you're coming from within with that, you know. He can only just judge the gesture and say he calls Selassie I name and I God and go into that kind of meditation. You see, but he can never tell where you're coming from in your understanding when you make that utterance. You see? With me, it is straight up a symbol. You understand? And we cannot avoid symbol in our existence. Even the very words and images that come to our minds are symbols of essences. You understand?
Sure.
But this is the way that we are able to interpret these energy into our sphere of life, this physical realm. You understand?
man.
So with
Sure.
I, that way it is differently when dealing with His Majesty. And I man to see that to work from that point of overstanding, and let me make the point for put that in. I don't see to work from that point of overstanding inhibit you in your sense of self. I believe the understanding that you're working from makes all the difference. You understand? As somebody will have to point out to me where you have some kind of example that say, in terms of character, because these are some of the parts we don't talk about either. One of the things that we seek self-knowledge for is to shape a character of ourselves, and that now cover the full circle, the mortal side involved. You understand? That's where the rubber hit the road. You know, care how much ceremony a guy go. If when he come a road, he can't come with the love. He can't come with some temperance. You see? And some good vibes towards humanity. You see? So, for I know, it make a difference the way you understand it, right? Where you're coming from. He can tell you that because I've been on both sides of the fence. It makes a big difference where you're coming from. You understand? But for me, once whatever exercise you're involved with, as ritual or whatever you say you're doing, is helping to shape that kind of character in you. To me, it's all good. The formality doesn't matter to me. If you're worshiping car tires as your God, and when you come, you have the love and the understanding and all the rest of it, I'll order 40-foot container tires every Christmas for you. Let you worship some more. Why? Because you're coming with the substance.
Sure, man.
I don't have to now try bamboozle myself to understand how we can worship a tire. Because I can never know what look by looking at him.
All right, true.
You know?
My bill in regards to that, right? I give thanks for the bill I said.
Yes, I.
In my view, let me just change the comment there. In my view, really, if the notion is knowledge of self, right? If the notion is knowledge of self, in my view, that knowledge of self doesn't really pertain to anything outside of you. Because if you're dealing with self, whether you want to call it physical, spiritual, you know, yeah, my little one there still, you know, yeah. Even though you want to call it spiritual or physical, it deals with self, which excludes all external things. So, to me, there is no way you can tie in knowledge of self. Not that I'm saying anyone has complete knowledge of self, because knowledge is infinite, you can never stop learning. But to me, you cannot tie in knowledge of self with the external worship, be it symbolic or actual physical, in my understanding.
I think you're really underestimating this whole notion of symbol. it is these very symbols from ancient time, and this is the reason why they created mythology. You understand? It is these symbols that was used to forge your journey to that realization of self.
Okay, and give me a second. Yeah, it's
And
give me
you
a second.
can go to any.
Something
Uh-huh.
I was saying something I forgot to mention, and as you mentioned, the symbol there just came back to me. Something man I said in regards to he see the images on the wall and they have physical bodies with human heads. And he said, well, like just the fact that it has physical bodies shows the significance of the physical body. But then I just wanted to point out that there is such a thing as to anthropomorphize characters or characteristics. So when you anthropomorphize, you actually give a characteristic a physical nature. You can even make it look like an individual. And when you make it look like an animal, they call it a zoomorphic representation. So that symbol, while it gives a deeper understanding of what we would call the abstract, right? It still didn't say, well, like that is it. It was just a clearer understanding to even be able to tell it to children, let's see. Because you will not go and tell a child, well, you know, that the waters of Noah is actually the universe and it contains this and that chemicals and the whole periodic elements table. You know what I mean? You will not go into that. But sometimes if you draw Noah like the shape of a woman, you know what I mean? You can actually relate these stories, but that doesn't mean that the sky is actually a woman arched over like that. Again, that to me I understand as the symbolic representation. Because in all African spiritual cultures that I know, when we talk about what we refer to as the Almighty or the Creator that we all acknowledge we are all unitary particles of, right? There was never an individual per se looked at symbolically as the completeness of that. In my view, through the research I've done it. So I'm
But
saying, go
that
on.
really, sorry, continue, finish.
Okay, true. So yeah, so I'm saying in regards to that view, to see it in a literal aspect, as everyone can admit, really, is a level of understanding. So when you're at a certain level of understanding, you would deem well like its meaning is therefore literally represented, where you have to worship a particular thing, person, place, or whatever. But then when you come to another understanding, you will realize that, but hold on, to do that really still not even in the completeness of knowledge of self, because again is self, knowledge of self.
There is something there is
But
something a little bit
yeah,
tangled up about
true.
inserting
Give us a moment there. Let me bring
knowledge
in.
of self in
Yes.
that stream of reasoning. There's something about that because, okay, you see, to me,
Just
either
now,
way,
Ison, just now, I'll let you go through just now. Let me just bring in Wasser and Manai back on the reasoning still, you know?
okay,
Yeah.
respect, fair enough.
Wasser, welcome to the Reasoning King. Give thanks, Uncle Justin Neb, Tepo, late but always on time. As they say, I give thanks for your presence. How's everything? Muted. Muted. Oh, you're not even muted, but I'm not even hearing you.
No, I mute
All
on
right.
my.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, Hetepu Senu. Hetepu Senu. Y'all hearing me now?
Yes.
Really,
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I reached late on the reasoning.
I was just
But
saying, in my level of
No, man, I wait.
understanding, like
Man.
yeah, but I just listened to the reasonment so far. Just trying to pick up everything that was said, get the flow. So y'all can continue. I'll just be listening in.
Yeah, I'll just okay. And man, I bring you back in. Ison was giving a reasoning, so we could just let him finish, and then Imhotep go bill after that, and I go let the I go through, and then what's it? Yeah, Ison, go through.
okay. Well, what I said, Jed, I man really do not really see a conflict in the situation, providing that whoever making these gestures to these symbols really understand what he's doing. When a person like just joining something, like somebody just come into Rasta and see you say, okay, you call Selassie, you pray and worship and all kind of something. It kind of natural for you expect this person to interpret that literally. You know, likely that this person I gonna see some deeper understanding and see symbolism and all these kind of things. You see, and as we say, for the man who just come in, your understanding tends to automatically work from there. You understand? But within the process of growth, I can only speak my experience. You understand? Within the process of growth, as I continue to search and to understand what this God is all about, the spiritual and being spiritual and everything like that, I come into the kind of knowledge that make me realize that no, this not making any sense literal, because I myself could critique the whole situation and really conclude that this idea of Selassie being God, the all-powerful, the omnipotent and most wise, not seem to fit when you see that a common human in Mussolini would defeat him in war. When I start look at these things, then I know no, this not making sense in terms of literal application. You understand? So learning other things like symbolism, studying other religious structures and religious system and even metaphysics that show you now symbolism, then I can now look back on exactly what we've been doing all along and see that no, this is not meant to be literal. This is meant to be symbolic, because only when you interpret it symbolically, then everything flow together with these other knowledge, this whole idea of knowledge of self and all of that, which, by the way, whenever you when you spoke of knowledge of self just a while ago, you speak to it in a very personal form, like knowledge of myself, and that doesn't have anything to do with this other form out there. You understand? You speak in those terms, which tells me that you're interpreting self in that instance as yourself, like your personal self in that instant. All right? As I say,
to clarify on that still, even though I'm referring to my personal self, remember I brought up the word for you, individual. So I'm not only talking about the avatar, which is your physical structure, your anatomy. I'm also talking about that unitary particle of that divine consciousness that you are. So in the complete knowledge of self, you will know that not only of the physical being your lineage and where you came from, you understand, even going through certain events historically, transatlantic slave trade, and you know what I mean, but still understanding the soulful aspect. I don't even want to say the spiritual aspect, because we have to still differentiate spirit from soul. The soul aspect in regards to, as Marcus rightly said, being that unitary particle, and he didn't even call it God, he said universal consciousness. So to me, when you study knowledge of self, it doesn't only include where you're from physically, it also has to do with where you are from, even on a spiritual, soulful level, which again, that truth will take you back to you being part and parcel of that source, as Imhotep would like to say, having a human experience, getting to know self again. You understand?
No, I wasn't questioning the definition that you were using, really.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying that when you were reasoning about that, and then make reference to the idea of coming out of that knowledge of yourself, and then be reaching like, well, you're worshiping someone else outside like that. That is the specific part that I was referencing.
Okay.
You understand? Because, well, as I say, what I constantly realize, forward, what I constantly realize in these discourse is that all of the thoughts that one's holding as it relate to the worship of this personage is based on a critique of the literal gesture of it, because that's the only way that we knew it. I mean, before Ayman come on the platform and start make reference to it being a symbolic gesture, this is not a conversation that you would hear anywhere.
Okay.
You understand? You know,
Yeah.
you don't hear that. So really, it's now to respond to this idea of a symbolic gesture more so than the literal.
Okay, now let me interject there before I let Imhotep come through, and after Imhotep, I'll let Waseru come through, right? If it is symbolic, right? Because we'd like to deal with the symbolic nature, right? The symbolic, I said, still has to be done to something literal. It is not being really done to only something abstract.
It's
So
not
even
what
though
it's not what you're relating it to, you know. It's what you're able to accomplish.
Mhm,
You understand?
mhm.
And what you're able to accomplish in your journey, in your understanding of things. I don't know, me study, me read book on symbolism and mythology a lot, because me love for back check myself and back check what it is that I'm thinking also. Because
Sure.
most of this a knowledge that acquired through my personal journey. I happen to pay attention a lot to my thoughts and how everything moves. I can tell you how I used to think about things 10, 15, 20 years ago. I paid that amount of attention. So I know where I'm coming from and where I leap and land and so on and so forth.
True.
You understand?
Yeah.
So
Imhotep, I don't know if you want to give a bill. I mean, we've been going back and forth for a while. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man. I just want to say this real quick that Socrates, you know, the Greek philosopher who is considered one of the greats, he said, "Man, know thyself, and you will know the gods and the universe." We pretty much know that they took that from, you know, our ancient African spiritual system. Um, the scriptures in the book of Luke says, seek first the kingdom of heaven and all shall be added unto you. I say that to say this: all spiritual systems of antiquity always speak about knowledge of self equates to knowledge of the universe. Now, when we speak about the universe and symbolism, it's important for us to tie in symbolism with the seven hermetic principles or the seven universal law. Because when it comes on to symbolism, the law of correspondence is applicable here. You know, there is nothing new under the sun, as they would say. So whatever is symbolic on the outside, there's also a correlation on the inside,
inside,
you
true.
know, and that's how we express that. Now, when it comes on to knowledge, knowledge to know is to experience, you know, like no one can just tell you something and it becomes knowledge. It is information, it is not knowledge. So in order for one to have knowledge of self, it has to come through an experience or an experience. Now, the reality of life is that we do not learn anything. Our purpose is not to learn anything on this journey, because our purpose is really to recognize, to be cognizant of, because everything is within already. You know, we go to school to recognize, even though, you know, we have been misled to think that we are being taught or we are learning things. It's really more of a recognition, because everything comes from within. You know, by utilizing our intuitive faculty, we recognize things. So I just want to add that real quick to say that knowledge has to do with experience. If you don't experience it, it's not knowledge. If it's not experience, it means that it is information. So as it relates to symbolism, yes, the seven hermetic principles has to be tied in to create that correlation of the on earth as it is in heaven, as it is within, it is without, as above, so below.
Perfectly said, Rasta. Man, I have nothing for add to that. Nothing for add to that. That is well said. Wazia, you wish to contribute
Yes, I. Y'all can hear me?
clearly?
I. Well, the topic of knowledge of self. They say that the knowledge of self is actually destruction of the self. Is really knowledge of the universe. The tools we've received in this modern day age of um, the Orientalists that teach us of the Freemasonic thought, abstract thinking. Of course, we know abstract thinking itself come from ancient Africa. That's where you find abstract art. Um, we would our artwork would be done in an abstract way. Sometimes we would do our kings much larger than the rest of the people. There's a difference though in what we receive, the Eurocentric form. Although they say wisdom is we since wisdom is and knowledge is real, no matter what language you put it, it remains real. But it also is seated on a cultural foundation. Many times when we speak of knowledge of self, it takes on a form of staunch individuality and individualism about you. Because when my students come to me, the first thing they tell me is that they want to open the third eye. And then I would answer them and tell them, opening the third eye sometimes takes lifetimes. And I would tell them that the foundation, the foundation really is knowing your history. In knowing your history, you would know your origins, and from your origins, you would get your purpose. Because in going through the whole system of what we call the Sefek Bara, others call the chakras, the Aritu, the chakra system, to clear the heart chakra, which is the midheaven, it has to do with a certain level of service. That's why in all Masonic houses or what there is a lot of philanthropy. There is a lot of giving because it takes service for your heart to really open to reach to the higher divine qualities. So knowledge of self is really destruction of the idea of a separation of self. I don't know if you're following where I'm going.
Yeah, I'm feeling you. I'm feeling you.
Then, of course, there is the level of knowledge of the part you have to play on discipline. Because a lot of people watch spirituality as going into a room and meditating. But for the African perspective, the African perspective more has to do with charity, family, community. So you have these persons that are into self mastery and building themselves, but it's supposed to lead to organization, community building, family, education. So I think that the Eastern, like the Buddhism and these kind of movements, are more individualistic than our original African concept. African concept, which had to do with building family. That was the whole reason for the entire system. So, in knowledge of self, really, is a quest to destroy the idea of disconnection and separation. And of course, we have the tools because, I mean, we were the first Masons, so we had to know levels and degrees, and these principles we applied it to ourselves. So in putting this abstraction, because in the idea of the mind turning itself upon itself to investigate itself, this is of course came from our ancient mystery system, and in that we created the synchronicities. Shouldn't say we created, but we observed the synchronicities of the different realms of existence, the animals, the plants, the seasons, the biochemistry, and then everything was put together in this synchronicity we today we call God. The idea of God really comes from the synchronization of all the different sciences put together. And when the Europeans came in, they got it, but they really got it at a depleting state. It was not the holistic thing that was at the beginning. I'm talking about before monarchical structure. And it's another thing we have to look at too when watching His Majesty, because the increase of public education is also the development of democracy and the destruction of monarchical structures. So when we say King Selassie and Emperor Haile Selassie, maybe the times of monarchy are dead. Because we must not forget His Majesty wrote the first constitution of Ethiopia. Himself as emperor was also relinquishing a lot of the power of the monarchy, because people begin thinking for themselves. Now we're in a different era, and there was a time when there was no monarchical structure, and in some indigenous nations in Africa, you find there is no king, and Europeans found that incredible, and it was difficult for them to digest that there was no king, but it was an egalitarian system, and the whole system of the Necheru, the brothers and sisters and fathers, and you can see it's a companionship and not any monarchical structure, which came later on afterwards. So when we analyze the knowledge of self, it has there's different levels. There's the cosmic self, there's the self that must operate on this plane, must fight the certain battles of the mimetical ideations that remain lingering, because let's look at the whole mimetic idea of slavery and inferiority and racism. When Hitler, who was the number one proponent, who was the creature the Europe created, that turned on themselves, like the modern day Frankenstein of white supremacy. When they destroyed Nazism, most of the scientists came to America, and the whole system of white supremacy still continue to flourish in the West. So knowledge of self means facing all these earthly struggles and battles. And still then we must also see our unity as a cosmic people, because the white man is still a descendant of the African, and if we breed with the white people, we wouldn't make mutants, we'll make human beings. So that's to show you there is a unity amongst all people. So also in fighting the battle which we have come to we have come to behold right now, behold on earth, the so-called battle of the races, the battle of mimetic ideations, we also have to remember to keep our hearts pure. That is where the sacred science of knowledge of self comes in. And I think His Majesty portrayed that sacred science beautifully, in his response to how he treated the Europeans and Africans. His heart was still on a levels of, even you never see how he used to deal with the European children. You could see he was coming from that place of there shouldn't be any division amongst racial lines. Same thing as J. Rogers. But it's because we have inherited this absolutism. It's black or it's white. And really, as Imhotep many times have said, everything are in degrees. So that is just my little contribution on the knowledge of self.
Give thanks. Yes, Imhotep, I'll let you go through. I soon will come back. Give thanks.
Yes. All right. So I was going to say that, as I've said before, everything is interconnected, everything is interrelated. The idea of a individualistic nature, it goes against universal laws. So when we start to think as if, we are an individual, we are actually indivisible duality, because, we also have a dual nature.
Exactly.
We have many bodies. There's the physical, there is the astral, there's the causal, there's the mental, there's the soul, there's the etheric. So, I just say that to say that, we are, say, one person with multiple divinities. So at the end of the day, we have to look past, that the individual, because there is no such thing. Because if you have a multiple personality, that eliminates the concept of, individuality. As my brother Wasir had said about history, I think it's important for us to step away from history and start to focus on the mystery, or my story. Because as people would say, history is his story, because they are the ones who wrote it. But the mystery system, the my story system, is that which encompasses who we are, who we were, who we are to become. So that is, in essence, the knowledge of self definitely synchronizes with that. So, as I said before, if we speak about knowledge of self, yeah, self doesn't mean an individual. We have to broaden that to the various aspects of the divine.
True, man. True. I saw him
Yes,
to go
King.
through.
No, just for concur, just to fully concur with Imhotep utterance, you know what I mean? That they definitely, that this right now, this whole idea of self-love become a thing. All kind of common people, anybody just come taking selfie and loving themselves and so on. And for me, this whole idea of self-love is really, well, I man call it a spiritual language, meaning something that people that come into awareness start to use, our phrase that they start use. You understand? Come to know yourself, love yourself, them kind of thing. Now you see people taking selfie and say they're loving themselves and all kind of thing, which tends to suggest that the self that they are focusing on is that one that looks so pretty in the photo. You understand? But they, as Imhotep may say, this thing travel on many levels, you know, many divinities, you see, and that to the fullness. I man just always have to make the connection, even while agreeing with everything along them lines, that qualitatively, ourself, our true self is the same thing as this entity that we refer to as God, the ethers, whichever we use to represent the prime mover or the creator, whichever way. You understand? Yeah, I man always have to emphasize that. You see? That qualitatively, it is the same thing. So even when you're inside, as particularly when you come to awareness and you speak about self, well, context sometimes can determine whether you're referring to yourself personally or not in speaking. You understand? But most of the people that come to an awareness of themselves, when you talk about self, it really speaking about the all. You see, and all is one. It's the quality, because qualitatively, you are the same thing as every other human being. And the most essential level, we are all the same thing. You understand? And as Imhotep himself alluded to earlier, the journey in this human experience have to bring yourself to conscious awareness of that fact. Because prior to that, you basically identify with your name, your race, your country you come from, these kind of things. You know?
True.
It's like,
True, man. Yeah. And building on top of what you say still, you know, I'll say the knowledge of, or when individuals identify themselves by the name, you know, where they live and the job and the career and everything there, while that is not essentially you, because we still classified the physical as a part of the fullness in the threefold, as Imhotep began his reasoning when he just came in. So that now, that part of it would be the foundation or the beginning stage. Because again, in our previous discussions, we have even spoken about, you know, how important your name is, and name being one of the nine parts of the soul. So a name would only be given again to a physical property, because if we have to go into the spirit and we have to go abstract, it's all part of the source. The only way you identify that you are actually a unitary particle of that divine consciousness is because that part or that element is encased within that physical. So that, yeah, my name and where I am, yes, that is surface, right? Because when I meet you, Ison, I'll not just say, so you see, that also, who is the I? I'll not say, well, I'm a, you know, piece of the divine consciousness having a human experience.
no,
So,
but let me tell you now. I
uh,
find a reason in this way of seemingly splitting them apart for specific reason, you know, because these things come out of even my interaction with different people, right? Psychologically, I believe you make a difference, right? In terms of where you forge your identity, what you use within your total makeup for your identity, all right? Because check this, the mortal side of our being cannot claim immortality now.
no, that's why I
Yeah.
said the
See, yeah.
association with the physical things, that is the beginning stage. That is like foundation, that's like surface, but
No, no,
it's
no, me
still
understand.
fundamental. Oh, you
I'm
understand?
in
Okay,
agreement.
true.
No,
True.
I'm in agreement with that
Okay,
completely.
true.
This is part of the reason why I'm tell you when a person start then chat with Rasta and see this gesture toward Haile Selassie, automatic that then go say literal.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And except that you grow to the point that you're able to solve the mystery of it and realize that the gesture is actually symbolical. You see, when you recognize that, it sets you free to go looking for you. The same thing that you're referring to, but separating yourself from observing the external source. You see, give me the freedom. Me no look in the Bible. I mean, as much as me talk about Bible in relation to His Majesty, I no look in the Bible. I know me have reasoning with the man and them. That I man come go over there the gates the other day and bring on Bible in my presence. That at least I can reference some kind of verse for set out an argument. I don't even deal with the thing. You understand? I listen Alan Watts, Feast of Manly P. Hall a whole lot. The Hermetic Principles. These are the things that me run like mantra. My ritual life is different in that sense. Everything serves that notion and understanding of self. You understand? That kind of way. But that freedom only came when I come to the realization that the application is actually symbolic. It is actually symbolic. It cannot make any sense any other way but symbolic. For the reasons and them that I constantly outline about the chi qualities and all the rest of it. You understand? So, as I say, it's just, it's a different position. You know what I mean? To come from, I guess something that people have to put some thought into and get used to. But I man feel pretty certain that even still observing the symbol by name, up to now, we still use our salutations as Selassie and all the rest of it. With the clear understanding what is what. It is no inhibition.
Okay.
Now, me really appreciating myself.
True.
You understand?
True. Imhotep, I don't know if you want to go through. I don't know if
Yes. All right. So let's just look at especially in the context of Rastafari, let's look at the etymology of the movement, right? The beginning phases where you have Hans, Petersburg and Robert Rogers. They wrote the royal parchment scroll of Black Supremacy, and they wrote the Holy Pibit, right? And we saw where Leonard Powell wrote on the Promise Key. Within it was the concept of a divine person, because they took it from biblical context. Now, when a Christian says Jesus, or they mention Jesus' name, we can identify that they see and acknowledge this character as being a deity or being a savior or a messiah. Now, truth be told is this: Rastafari does not have a fundamental principle where all persons who consider themselves Rastas are on the same wavelength as it relates to Haile Selassie. My brother Isern, okay, you will see Rastafari in a symbolic way, but the reality is that we have many other brothers who really see His Imperial Majesty as God in the flesh and God incarnate. That is something that we cannot go around. So whenever someone is to say Selassie I or Rastafari I, based on the fact that it is coming from a religious conceptualization, right? People will definitely identify the concept of you saying that His Imperial Majesty is God in the flesh, because many Rastas do believe that. Many Rastas are convinced about that. You get what I'm saying? So that's why it's important to differentiate what position you are in, because as a Rastaman, if you say Selassie, the secular world will definitely label you as seeing Haile Selassie as God incarnate based on the context of the movement. You get what I'm saying, family? It's the same thing as a Christian saying Jesus or a Muslim saying Allah or Muhammad. They see that divinity within those individuals or those characters. So, with the Rastafarian movement, when someone says Selassie, automatically, there needs to be clarification because of the way the movement is structured, where there are some people who see the symbolic gesture and some people who take it literally, and that's the reality that we cannot beat around. So the fact
respect.
Yes.
Let me add some to that. The man absolutely correct, by the way, with that scenario. To me, some of the reason for that is the whole collective growth process of the movement in terms of even the development of our thought. You have to understand that Rasta starting within the environment that it started in, and in Jamaica in particular, well, it would have far more than just Christian influence, because you are coming on all these other traditions that Jamaica have underground. You understand? The formative days of this thing, developing a theology of sorts for this thing, I believe it's kind of natural that you will see reflection of these different influences around from in the environment. You would see elements of that. And I hear different ones speak about these elements. You understand? Also, collectively, in terms of the general view, as you put them between these two camps, let's just use two, a binary. You will find that most of the teaching, right? Like if you go to a Bing, and a man go up to the altar, no man a reason. The level of information that you get all point towards that first stage. You understand? That first stage where you don't develop a spiritual eye yet. Because even sometimes, even if you tell a person no, that has not come to awareness, their eye not actually open yet, and you tell them something divine, they will hear it now, they can hear it and repeat it. But in a really resound, you understand? Because the eye, the internal eye does not see it. When the internal eye comes to see it, it's a different resonance. You understand? So for me, it's two things. I, man, personally, do not concern myself with how anyone might interpret my words. I figure it's wise if people want to know something about someone, then it's wise for maybe you're going to ask the person some question. Ask somebody that you think close to the person, you know what I mean? Not take on face value judgment. But me personally, I know that if I am asked, get caught in a situation, let's say me in a supermarket and somebody say something, I say Selassie, as a heel, and somebody say, wait, but with the Selassie and they worship Selassie. I man can easily explain that. And that's good enough for me. You see, rather than to almost, I might want the freedom, in other words, right? Of not seeking to satisfy people around in terms of what they are thinking. You see, but to be true to self. Marcus Garvey say, must be true to yourself. If you're true to yourself, you can't be false to no man. Actually, I think that was a Shakespearean that he used to repeat. You understand? But that saying is very true. I try to center on that, brethren. I don't care if 1 million people out you see, I know you have social consequence to it for them seeing me in a certain way and probably talk that around the place. You understand? But once I know I true cross here, I am at peace. And I know in time, life itself will prove otherwise to whoever thinking. You see it. I'm on travel with a kind of firmness. I'm on really in a career pride on my back in respect of that, because one of the things is, listen, what's going on with you in terms of your personal relationship, you see, with the prime mover is a personal matter. You understand? This is why I feel free also to leave the group thinking or the group level of overstanding and stand out on my own outside with a different understanding and assert it, not run out, assert it in there. You understand? Firmly. Because I think, well, my duty is to speak the truth that revealed to me when I come forward. Not to try to get the concurrence of all the other rastas around. I learned that God come to man, not to group. And so that give me the freedom to follow the truth as he revealed to me. And this is the way he led me to, you know what I mean? But the man utterances and then completely accurate, you understand? But that's just the way I man deal with it. I man concern myself too much so with people that might look on and see one say Selassie, they want to say Selassie, understanding that literally this is how this thing apply, because even some of them propagate that and then assume that this other one that say it also have the same intention. You know?
Okay.
If that issue, then the only natural thing to do is just leave the culture.
Okay.
And I think the culture is a great culture. You know?
Sure, man.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something, right?
Mm-hmm.
From your bills and your reasonings, right? I understand that you see what we call God or the Almighty as the all, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But if you tell me, you explain to me that you are doing something symbolic,
Mm-hmm.
and then the symbolic gesture is sort of to the all, you know, but then you attach the title of the physical to it. You know, you're not saying like perhaps they'll have a little, you know,
No,
complication.
because again, I'm living out of my overstanding. I can't do it from the perspective of an unwatcher who may not understand because they're just not having my experience.
Okay.
If I'm going to bound myself to the idea of that, I can never get to be me. I can never get to assume what my experience have brought me to, because I'm going to try to position myself to reflect a kind of way. You understand? I believe it just be true, just be pure.
True.
Even
So in
if
your
you
view,
black to them that look on, just be pure. And that in time will override whatever anybody thinks.
okay. So in your view, one can have knowledge of self and still worship.
Once you have that understanding, I would say yes. I don't, and for me, bottom line is, it's for you to really cultivate good character. When we come here, we say love and speak with maturity, now can be critical of one another and so on. And nobody here to get hot inside here. These things are what we search for.
True, man.
Because to me, that's a big part of mastering self. For you to control your thoughts, your emotions,
Your
and
emotions,
things like this.
yeah.
You understand? This is a part of the whole mastering self thing. You understand? And once we can come here and we can operate like this, I can speak to you and I can speak of things in esoterically and so on, and you understand. And we can go down to the earth and we talk about the earth things and we understand one another. I'm good.
True, man.
I'm not concerned where it is your worship. I'm not
True.
worshiping. Not from what I see you manifesting. You understand?
Mm-hmm. True.
So to me, once the person understands themselves, that is what matter. And that is everyone personal responsibility for understand yourself. Ask your questions inside, go look for your answer. If your answer move you away from the sect, you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Once you're delivered, once they're the end of the day, you can come and now can lock arm and the brotherly love and good vibes still there. I in a business you can jam down a pork farm.
True, man. Kwame Atil Thomas sent a question there. Simon Rajarish, can one relate to the all without using spiritual symbols? Well, the question is directed at me. In regards to that question, can one relate to the all without using spiritual symbols? I would say no. But then a spiritual symbol, we are living it in the abstract world. And then like Manai was giving a bill earlier on, and he said, well, like, even though, and I said this already, even though, you know, the ancestors drew what they drew, and it had physical bodies. Again, that is looking at the literal aspect of it, because that's what you call anthropomorphize. You are giving human characteristics to abstract ideas or emotions or principles. So ultimately, even though you try to relate it on a spiritual symbol level, it is just that, to actually bring it down, let's say, to the fourth dimension or to this plane, would really be, to dissing the God, really. You understand? But that is just my view. But moving on
All of
to
them.
next
The thing,
bedroom,
the,
I
the
want to
thing is,
ask.
right? Sorry, let me say this
Let me let
finally. We can
Imhotep,
get
yeah.
somebody else
So
a reason.
yeah, so Imhotep, do you really see with knowledge of self, one should actually still worship an external person, place, thing, smell, teddy bear, or whatever,
Why should? Why ask if they should?
All
No,
right.
well,
Okay.
again, but you just answered the question, so
I believe
so that should
you're
have
trying
been
to
your
put this in
question.
the context.
Yeah,
Ultimately, is where you end up at.
yeah. Okay, with knowledge of self, right? Would you still see it fit, really, for one to worship an external source? Let's put it that way.
See if it, okay.
All right. So with knowledge of self, knowledge of self, will also equate to mastering of self, right? Because knowledge comes in degrees. All right. So yeah, it's a process. It's a journey with many avenues, but no destination in mind. So when it comes down to knowledge of self, for any person who is on the journey, right, or who has mastered self to a certain degree, for them to worship anyone or anything is actually counterintuitive and goes against the purpose of the knowledge of self. To worship is to recognize something as being a deity. To recognize something or someone as being a deity or to deify them is to put them above you in consciousness. Now, if consciousness is infinite, it means that we should not apply any limitations on ourselves by worshiping someone or something. Because once we start to worship someone or something, it means that we recognize those characteristics as being divine and above us. Unfortunately, as well, there is also
Not
the misinterpretation of to praise and to worship. Because, like, when someone says, something good about Haile Selassie, generally people will think that you worship Haile Selassie when that's not the case. When I speak good about you, it means that I am praising you. Unfortunately, that word has been relegated to a religious concept, right? So we have to differentiate praise and worship, because to speak good about someone or to edify them, that is praise. To worship is to direct that energy and to speak about the person or the thing in a defined manner. And we give energy and life to that which we speak about. So for one who is, or one who has, mastered self, to worship in that context is counterintuitive and goes against the principle of the entire purpose.
True one. Ison, I don't know if you, because I saw you wanted to say something while
what
you were.
would be your opinion? What would be your opinion of the ancient system of Kemet with the concept surrounding divine kingship? Would you say it is counterintuitive?
Okay. When you say divine kingship, are you speaking about, like, the Pa'at Neteru, or where you have Asar, you have Amen, you have Aset, stuff like that? if are you referring about that, or you're talking about the kingship where you have the rulers and whatever?
Yeah, well, divine kingship was invented, so to speak, by the Nile Valley people. Okay? And the concepts around the king being a two-part individual, as they say, the two-person on the throne whenever Horus sits. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The physical side represent mortality and mankind. And you also have a theological concept attached to the same individual, which suggests that he is God and so on and so forth. Do you know of this system?
Yes, but not because someone can come in and say, okay, I am king and my bloodline should be king because I was the first king. That does not validate their divinity. And we have seen that even as it relates to ancient Kemet, there were many invaders who became, kings of Upper and Lower Egypt, or they crowned themselves Pharaoh. Does that mean that they have that divine right to rule? No, it doesn't. So when
no, well, I'm not questioning. I'm not really questioning. The question I'm asking, I'm not questioning whether they have divine right to rule. What I'm questioning is if that whole concept,
yes,
because it is one of the fundamental tenets of Egyptian religion. All right, the concept of divine kingship. I read this on one of our reasoning there out for ones and ones. And so, no, I think, well, reasoning with Siamon differently. You understand? Where I read out a work done by Professor Lanny Bell, who is an archaeologist, an Egyptologist, and a specialist on the topic of divine kingship. And he was explaining the whole structure of divine kingship and the whole mythology surrounding it and so forth. Mark you, it is one of the fundamental tenets of the Egyptian religion. So I'm asking you, if you find that system which they use to come to their self-realization counterintuitive, because that concept involves having a theological concept of the mortal king that's sitting on the throne as a matter of symbolism, religious symbolism. So would you consider that culture to be counterintuitive, a hindrance to them coming to self-awareness?
What I will say is this: the thoughts and practices of today might not fit the blueprint of tomorrow. And that is applicable to even the concept in times of antiquity, from the Sumerians to the Egyptians, right? When they were kings on the throne, the concept of the king being the divine ruler, that's all it was. The Sumerians and the Egyptians, or the Sumerians in particular, they would say that they have a connection to the gods. Okay? Now, truth be told is this: any person, especially in ancient Kemet, every king had to sit on the square, right? Every king had to embrace the principles of Ma'at. So one's divinity was not based on his birthright or the theology. One's divinity was based on his works or what he did. So one had to be fair and square to be considered divine. It doesn't make no sense. Your bloodline or your foreparents were king, yet you are a savage. Okay, you're a destructive person. That takes away your divinity, because your divinity should be the fact that you are in synchronicity with the, cosmic law or the law of being. Are you guys hearing me?
Yeah. Ison, you're muted. Ison.
Sorry, I hear that, but are we qualifying divinity in the king? The question I was asking, because I'm following up from your reasoning before, right? When you say to be observing someone outside, I'm assuming that you're referring to literal gestures. I'm just assuming that.
We talk about worship. Worship by definition. Worship by definition. You know, that's where we were talking about. Worship by definition is to recognize by deeds, right? Words are deeds, the divinity or the deification of a character or a thing. Okay, that's the definition of worship. So we were talking about worship based on the definition of it. So when someone say, well, I worship Haile Selassie as God incarnate, it means that that person recognizes Haile Selassie in words and deeds. It might be through ritualistic practices. By words, it might be through utterances that that person is a deity. And once they say deity or what that person is deified, it means that what they are in the pantheon of the gods. So that's where I'm coming from, the definition of worship. When it comes on to one being elevated in consciousness, there is no need for one to deify anyone or anything, because one who is elevated in consciousness recognizes that he is interconnected and interrelated to the all or to everything. So there is no need in words or deeds to deify a person or a thing. That I'm just speaking in the context of the meaning of worship.
Okay, respect. But as
Say want to go through.
yeah,
Say
let him go
want to
there.
go through
Okay,
anything.
respect. Let him go.
Okay. I think it has a lot to do with worldview, with our worldview. There is one. Okay. What we're speaking about is not accepted as any science, concrete science you can go to study anywhere to get a degree, a master's, or anything, right? This is what persons would call this what we're doing pseudoscience. But there is a principle or a profession that manifested from acquiring the knowledge of this abstract science. And that's what they call in the Western world psychology, the study of the psyche, which was developed after learning the abstract thinking of Nile Valley, Africa. I just want to read a certain. Okay, I just wanted to read a piece I have there on the mystery system. Let's see, the mystery system. Okay, let's start from there. This system was divided into two levels. There were exoteric and esoteric. The level which was exoteric was the general education that everyone in Kush, Kemet, or Nubia were afforded. The level which was esoteric was the hidden mysteries or secret knowledge that led to the initiate to a higher state of consciousness. Their education consisted of medicine, mathematics, geometry, music, land surveying, trade and commerce, and other disciplines as well. These disciplines were applied to all areas of human endeavor. These two forms were found in 7 degrees. The Pastophoros is the degree which teaches basic aspects of medicine and include all known and unknown sciences. It deals with one's physical nature. This degree was influenced and has influenced the Entered Apprentice because it is said that the left side of the human body is the weakest, and it was therefore that the Entered Apprentice was in the weakest form. Then we have the next degree, which is the Melanophosis. the melanophores, and it teaches about the energy forces between life and death states. This degree is directed to the indigenous peoples because of their high melanin content. Melanin is a word derived from the Greek word melanos, which means black. Melanin is a carbon based molecule, and carbon is the key atom to life, which is black itself. Then it goes on to the next degree, Christophorus, which involves understanding the inherent law of plants, music, colors, magnets, metals, and crystals, and other elements of the cosmos. It is in this degree Pythagoras, during his learning in Kemet, understood the music of the spheres, which he in turn implemented among his initiates into his cult, and the fellow craft he taught about the inherent laws of the elements as well. There's a Balahat or Balahit is the degree which teaches about the interaction of alchemic laws and nature. This degree is not so much based on the physical plane, but on the metaphysical, where, like in Freemasonry, working tools or substances become allegory and takes on a spiritual use. Then there's Astronomos, which teaches manipulation of cosmic forces. Then the seventh and last is Propheta, which teaches the esoteric mysteries and secret theology within the priesthood or brotherhood, which lead to the initiate to this degree of deification. Imhotep is considered the first Christ. Remember, Imhotep was deified and he was worshipped. The Greeks copied and they called him Asclepius and they worshipped him there. So, when someone has gone through the different levels and has become what we call a master of self, meaning you can also say a master of the universe, that one, when he dies, becomes Osar. Wasar was not really a title given to the living, but to those who have passed on. Seeing that that person was, as Imhotep says, Makeru, truth of words. Okay, and then I'll go on to read a little bit here. Operative and speculative, there is no separation. One must enter on 7 degrees and not 3. The Mason can see that 1 degree alone cannot teach the arts and sciences. The Mason or architect was both operative and speculative from an African perspective. Both aspects were intertwined with no separation of the two. To be a Mason or speculative is just that, one who observes and contemplates without action. They speculate and do not make applicable the precepts which are in the state of conception. The operative Mason works but must have guidance through focus and understanding of his or her purpose for working. The pyramids of Giza were built by physical mathematical laws, but by cosmic laws as well. Each monument on the Giza plateau are aligned to the stars of Orion's belt, that's Al-Milan, Al-Nitak, and Mintaka, represents Wasar, the Heru Emaket, or the Sphinx they call it, as commonly called, is situated east and west, which the sun itself makes its course. It gazes in the sky at its reflection represented by the constellation of Leo, which also represents Heru, the son of Wasar, and in turn Heru looks towards his father Wasar. Symbolically, Heru is the resurrection of Osar, and spiritually, he is Osar's perpetuation of immortality of the soul. Freemasonry adopts the lion's paw as the master's grip because it alludes to the first black god of resurrection. The pyramids are triangular in form, which possess the geometrical energy force of sustaining life. It also represents deity, which Freemasonry uses this symbol in all degrees from the first to the last. The African Grand Lodge of Waset and the curriculum, George G.M. James and Dr. Yusuf Ben Yokanan, World gives their perspective on Freemasonry and ancient African educational and spiritual system. In Stolen Legacy by James, he speaks of the ancient Grand Lodge of Waset. It was called the Ipeta Sut and the Osirika, which was the center of higher education for students around the world. The Greeks who were students of the Kemetiu were only permitted to enter Kemet for the purpose of their educational pursuits. By these Greeks, initiates of the African Mystery School established the temples in Greece. Euclid established a lodge at Megara, Pythagoras at Crotona, the Orphic Temple of Delphi, and the schools by Plato and Aristotle. According to James, none of the Greeks had created their own philosophy, but imitated that which was handed to them by the Kerihim of Kemet
Right.
via the mysteries. Okay, so
Sure.
yeah, this little document, it goes on to speak of the monument, the books of Jehuti, the different lodges of Waset, Mount Carmel in Palestine, Mount Lebanon in Syria, Media, Babylon, the Ganges, Burma, Athenian Lodge, Rome, Croton, Rhodes, Delphi, Miletus, Cyprus, Corinth, Crete, Numidia, so Carthagos, which is Carthage, Monomotapa. So it goes on to give to say that it all started in Kemet. And it talks about this speculative masonry that we have in our heads. But having it in our heads means we have to go into the conventional or the
Operative.
communal the communal psychosis that we are under. And for us to know ourselves, it's a matter of going into psychology, reading the works of Franz Fanon and Dr. Wade Nobles. So because to know thyself means we have to go beyond the realms of the colonialized minds we have inherited from our foreparents. So, yes, the keys, we can go towards the keys, which are the tools in the Freemasonic thought. But there is a division, a barricade when you have when approaching our ancestors and our African philosophy. The Kabbalism, Tree of Life, all these different systems cannot replace our indigenous African systems, which is a more dealing with nature, herbs, plants, the barks, and these things. Because the African, as you see here, was both a speculative and an operative. So in being a speculative Mason or son of Ma, you have to be operative. And
Sure.
that's where community building, family building, this comes into play. So these things could not be just abstract things. With these keys, with these tools, we have to be builders. And I think His Majesty exemplified that, what we call building, taking things from that invisible place and manifesting it on creation and giving it form and giving it shape. Because I was a member of the Ethiopian World Federation. Now, the Ethiopian World Federation is the only institution that His Majesty create. Not the Bobo, not the Nyabingi, not the 12 tribes. None of these. And if you look at the Ethiopian World Federation, you can see it's set up as a Masonic entity. All non-black, all non-Africans are excluded. What you discuss inside there, they tell you it is only for there, you cannot discuss it out there. There are 9 posts. So we can see the whole Masonic framework was encoded in the Ethiopian World Federation. I myself was the chaplain in the Ethiopian World Federation.
True.
And it said also that you must have a divine. Don't care what name you call it, but you must have a divine, what we would call a god. And you must be an African. So these are the that I think that organization that was left behind, that Maleku Bayen created in New York, where we have a chapter in St. Lucia. I don't know if it's still functioning because I left, but we can see the blueprint of this whole Masonic fort being put into the real physical world. So I think the speculative and the operative have to come hand in hand. And if we look at it this way, we'll see the true greatness of any man by their works.
True, man.
See, man,
Yeah,
can I just
man.
chime in a little bit? Yes, my brother was here. As I said before earlier, which you rightfully say, there's a speculative and the operative. And it goes again to the law of correspondence. You get what I'm saying? So the speculative is one who expresses the philosophical aspect of Masonry. Like a Manly Pial, he was a a philosophical exponent of what Masonry is. And then the operative now is the one who has to affirm Anuk Ma'at Kelu, which means that I am truth of words and deeds. The entire world system, the education system of the world is Masonic. The political system of the world is Masonic. Even the religious system. So we see a Masonic system encompassing everything that goes on in the world. You get what I'm saying? Now, with the Ethiopian World Federation, I get it where you said that, the principle, it is structured in a Masonic system. However, if speculative aspect, it's the same thing with Western Freemasonry. Western Freemasonry, they are the speculative side. One has to do it. One has to be the true operative because one has to express, the speculative side by their actions. And that's the reason why all the pharaohs or all the kings had to, square their actions. And that's why the square in Masonry represents Ma'at, because that has to represent, order. You get what I'm saying? So I just wanted to just, add a little bit to what you said.
All right, true. I'll let Manai give a bill because he's been dropping in and out of the stream. And I don't know if you want to add on what the Bedouin is saying, just unmute your mic and you want to go through, or if you see things differently. What's your perspective?
Yeah, give thanks again, I've been listening for the longest time, Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, we dealing with information that not even 200 years, some of the information that we come across, if you'll understand what I'm saying.
Man,
Most of the diggings and, all the books and all these things just coming back to us. So we now in the process of man knowing thyself. So we there reading and we there going and we, all of us there gabbling on different angles and different things now. I'll take it on a little perspective because I wouldn't want to go on the physical thing as much as I don't see no problem with the physical thing. I don't know why people have problem with the physical thing because to me, the way I understand chematology, many rivers one see, it could come from all angles. Nothing is wrong.
yeah.
Many
Look,
ways
somebody
of seeing
saying
the
they cannot
aspects.
hear you.
Nobody should be
Someone
telling
saying they
nobody
cannot
they
hear
think.
you.
Nobody, that's how I know consciousness. That's what maturity is. Nobody not supposed to tell a person, I don't think you should be a literal man and worshiping. And even worshiping to me, we have to understand if worshiping to me, if prayer is part of worshiping, because what we're doing is a form of prayer and ritual to us, some of us. And I just want to state some certain like different things. I want to bring some different aspects. We talk about the universal mind. I listen to a lot of things because I've been there. I mean, everybody been speaking for a while. And the collective prayer, what we know as collective prayer, people go into a church and, many of us that really, stop doing that. And we say, some of us say we're non-religious because we maybe not going through that whole ritual no more of church and maybe even seeing ourselves as a member of this and that. And, so we see ourselves as non-religious. And to us, and I'm telling you, everything you're doing, if you're getting up to go to work, you're getting up to play football every morning, this is your ritual, brother. Where somebody somebody, this is your ritual of prayer to a certain extent, even if you stay for 2 minutes. Whereas you might see maybe like the Bobo Shanti family, because that's why I represent, and I could say that get up every morning from since the day the organization have been organized as a proper organization, every morning at the 5 o'clock to the 8 o'clock, and it's like an ongoing thing every day for them. Even through the COVID, it never stopped, you know. So to me, and if I have to, in the conscious world now, you hear people getting so conscious that people talking about walking barefooted and all these things. Even the practice of the whole prayers and rituals, all been done, as Honorable knows, that through barefooted. We pray barefooted and everything. So it's a grounding order to a certain extent, because when you're praying on natural grounds. I mean, there have certain aspects where you see members maybe go in a little house to hold a Sabbath and different little things, maybe on a concrete or different things. But what we know as a real tabernacle is a grounding order. And you've seen people now talking about just that people just get, we've been doing that for way back then. The pioneer of all what we are talking about, black consciousness, to all these metaphysics and everything, is Rastafari. Like some will say, that's the stepping stone to it, to get to where they were going. But I'm saying there's still members that have the knowledge of all what we know about the mechanism. Like you could see, Ison is a member. Even you there, Osea, it's a growth of knowledge. So to take it on the next level again now, to just even come on that plane, the sun as a symbol is a symbol of the Most High in all the cultures. We all know that, right? Some people even say the ancients were worshiping the sun and things. I mean, it's according to what level you take that. But I'm just saying, I would break up the makeup of the sun is like a 73% according to what they tell us in astronomy. 73% and hydrogen, and we have 25% helium, right? And they say the rest is like calcium and a few other elements, right? Now, if you understand the periodic table, right? This is the first two elements in the periodic table, helium and hydrogen, right? And like I said earlier on, because I don't really want to stay too much on the physical level, but it's still a physical thing. Because when you're dealing with the periodic table, you're dealing with liquid, solids, and gases. That's the entire universe on a chat. Yeah? And what I'm telling y'all, that 73% and 25% is the same, you know, I mean, it's just the people giving us the sciences. And I'll give it to you, even if you watch the makeup of Mercury, because this thing is heavenly bodies that really connected to us and everything. And they're terrestrial planets and celestial planets, gas planets, 4 gas planets, for according to their astronomy, because they even put Pluto out, which is the dwarf planet they discover the same 1940 that Haile Selassie get crowned. You know? So, and they remove it just the same way they move Haile Selassie from history and everything. All these things happening on the planet straight in front of us. If you understand the whole movement of the heavens, I was telling Richborn that from the atom and everything that we're talking about, atoms and these things, is the same movement of that same, the planets going around the sun, the nucleus, and then you have your protons and your neutrons. When you really watch that, you're seeing is the literal solar system. They're literally repeating itself, because it's like a mirror we're dreaming, and it's, you know, it's a thing that's an ongoing thing for us to come and rectify what we have been doing. And I'm telling you, on the next level of even man knowing thyself, I just pull up, I don't know, is Ella Ison there? Ella Ison? Honorable, I'm just saying, the guy they call Isaac Newton, this white guy they call Isaac Newton, right? What was the philosophy about him? That he brought new ideas to astronomy, and that's not the narrative. When I go and read about him, that's the narrative I was getting, right? I just want to be on par. I just don't want to lose track. You know about Isaac Newton? I'm talking to Ellison or anyone.
No, not Newton in particular.
Yeah, but if you could even type him up now, you know, anybody could go and type him up and see that Isaac Newton was bringing new ideas to astronomy to the people, right?
Okay.
Now, when we're talking about manure itself, I know we just want to move out of it. I go in the heavenly planes because I could even break down all the planets. It's the same thing. Is you see 73% and the 25% that come like it's just the planet. We on planet Earth, like we say we are planet Earth. Your body, the ratio is the 70% and the 40% flesh, and the 70% what they call liquid,
water,
right? Which
yeah,
is
man,
your blood and your makeup and everything.
Yeah,
so,
but
and then these gases that they're talking about, majority of these gases, you still have that in you. You like the complete intelligence of the universe as a human being, according to astronomy, even if they say you like the last. So you're not, to me, what we watching great civilizations that we trying to understand that what we're trying to get to these levels, and then some of us saying that, I mean, we're not close in that level of understanding. That's why I'm saying the information, some of the information is just ongoing. And I just wanted to say that, you see the whole, what we seen as the worship and prayer. To me, prayer is like meditation, concentration, focus, because some people might be doing yoga to a certain extent. Some people, I'm telling you different levels of meditation, because you don't have to be calling a name, but it's still the same form to me, because it's you getting to know yourself more and more, and giving yourself time, talking to yourself. And why I'm telling you? So on the level of even I don't want to go astray,
Yeah, but I see,
we
yeah,
being Earth
you end
and
up.
Earth being us, meaning everything is everything, honorable. Because if you're watching how you would classify, somebody would say like, all right, like we're speaking of soul. We know soul come like the breath, like I was listening to the bedrooms. Soul come like the breath, and then some will tell you this not soul, sorry, the spirit come like the breath, and soul. When I listen to people, a lot of people have different understandings, and most of what people relating to the soul, I'll still say all that is part of the soul. Where somebody will tell you
All right, get you.
personality, then somebody will tell you maybe it have to do with your thought, and we light beings, and because it's soul is from the solar system, and our soul is the center of our,
Yeah,
the same way the solar system, the sun
yeah.
is the center of the solar system. Our soul is who we really are. We are solar beings. I'm children of light. I'm children of the sun. That's who we
True.
really are. But on the physical plane now, what I want to say, most of what we are talking about is like, I listen to Isaiah and everything he's reading. Most of the things are really happening literal. What happening with most of us? You see, if you don't believe in something, you not see it happening. If you don't believe the thing is literal, it just wouldn't work for you. That's just your fault. Your fault with. You might be throwing jewels away and don't understand you're throwing jewels away because of your fault with. You're supposed to be open as a mature spiritual person. That's how I see it, and gobble everything in and don't have no problem with it. I don't have no problem if somebody say, I don't think people should be worshiping Haile Selassie and these things. It won't shiver me, because what I'm saying, we as even normal beings, there are simple little things I could use as examples. I always using it for Richborn. You
But
cannot
try
see
and still
yourself
up on.
as
Try and,
a Michael Jackson or
man, I,
a Bob
man,
Marley.
I,
These people, like it's special people as come. We all have our part. Don't get me wrong. And discover our
man,
talents and
I,
everything. But some of these people born with some of the talents naturally, whereas some of
man,
us
I,
trying to build it. If you get what I'm
man,
telling,
I,
because
man, I.
you say these people didn't know themselves, because these people come and do a work to a certain extent.
Yeah,
Huh?
try and seal up on so an next bedroom can go through.
All right, blessing.
Yeah,
Yeah, so all I'm saying, we should be open to all sides, because the way I understand the information, it's not wrong for somebody to say, for instance, I could use just closing, just don't want to go wrong. To me, the architectural genius that put everything together as a mathematical how would you say, a certain mathematical way he put everything in place, and all the numbers are right there. What are the numbers am I speaking about? All the secret geometry, like the brother said a while ago, in that all the numbers are right there, and they all relating to the planets. I could even break them down, but for now there's a next time, and it's still relating to us as human beings if we really studying ourselves. I could show
yeah,
myself
give
as
thanks.
two
Give
people.
thanks, King.
I'm not the two people I'm speaking of, but I could show you different characters from me, because they carry the same name. It's like the same Prophet Manai. There's Prophet Manai from Persia, and then they have the Buddha Manai. My same name and
Sure.
everything. And then when I go and study them, I see some of the aspects of what I'm doing there right now, which I just get to know recently. It's not something. So it's like a growth for me. So even saying, trying to come out of the old physical realms, which throwing a lot of jewels away, that's what I could say. And
All right,
Haile
give thanks.
Selassie going to be worshipped in the next 200 years, even if people don't think it's supposed. That's how I see it. You know?
All right, give
Yeah,
thanks.
man.
Okay, yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, I don't know if Ras Ison or Imhotep want to go through, or I saying what's their
Yeah,
approach.
if Ras Ison want to go ahead, he can go ahead and I'll go after.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll go ahead.
I seen lean back like he taking it in, so you know, yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to basically pick up from my last outing, so to speak.
What?
Right? When I make reference.
I thought you would have built on what man I was saying because I had some things to say on what he was saying. You know, that's why I give the higher chance because I didn't think you were gonna go left with it. I thought you would have built on what he was saying in regards to.
Oh no. I honestly I mean I have some difficulty following the point because he seem to be touching on many different stuff. So I just basically treat that as his input. I really didn't have anything to go to that. I was trying to reconnect. I was just trying to return to where the conversation was at with me and Imhotep earlier concerning this worship towards.
Go on.
The brother seemed like he wanted to input something.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you all notice, I've been listening for the longest while. So the reason why I had so much different, I was trying to touch on every little aspect because it's like everybody made like 2 rounds on me, you know. So I never got to see. It's like I get gathering information and I have to try and deal with all information. So I have to be dealing with different pieces of it. It's not my fault.
True.
You know, and where I would have maybe want to make a little presentation, I have to be trying to, you know, patch that there because I never got a chance in the 2 rounds that passed, you know. It's not my fault. Bless Ison here.
Yes, brother. Respect.
Yeah, Imhotep, I don't know if you want to go through.
Yeah, in relation to what my brother Manny had said earlier as it relates to prayer, and even what my brother was here when he read from the article, and the article said that there are science, there is known science and there's unknown science. Science means to know, so if it's unknown, that means that it's not really a science, or what is unknown. Now, we are here to exchange ideas, and there are some things that we can respectfully disagree on, and there are some things that we can exchange ideas on. And what my brother Manny was saying as it relates to prayer, right? Knowledge of self equates to one elevating in consciousness. It's the same as a Masonic system where you go through degrees, right? Now, when one is on the journey to master self, or one is elevating in consciousness, prayer is not needed or required. What one does is affirmations. There is a difference with prayer and affirmations, because affirmations is an expression of the mental faculty. Prayer is something that you express through word of mouth. While you might be thinking about the thing or the character that you're praying to, an affirmation is more like you manifesting it through telekinesis, influencing physical outcome through the use of the mental faculty. So I'm just saying that some will disagree with me, but I, for one, I'm not an exponent of prayer. I am more into affirmation, and there is a big difference, because one who has mastered the science of mentalism knows that to speak it is to manifest it. So there's a big difference with prayer and affirmation. And that is where I will differ sometimes, with other ones, because there's a significant difference, and it's not the same thing. Because once one is developed mentally, you start to affirm things. Prayer is no more needed. When you are a neophyte or one who is uninitiated, then one might use prayer as a guide. But once you become a hierophant, right? You start to affirm. And those are the things that, we will, we can always build and reason about things like that because, we can respectfully agree to disagree.
Let me
That's just
ask
what I'm
you.
saying. Yes.
True.
Let me ask you something.
Just now, Ison, before you go through, I go still up in the next 15 minutes. You know what I mean? So just give the item a little time frame in mind still. You know? Yeah, Ison, go through.
Okay. You see, for me, we can go about defining words and doing all these different things, and of course, there are usefulness to that exercise. But you see, it's like you might want to say something complimentary, and the word that you select is not the ideal word according to standard definition. Okay? It's not the ideal word. But nonetheless, the sentiment that you carry is the right sentiment, let's say. You understand? So for me, all of these different exercises supposed to serve the purpose of shaping a certain character, whoever the person is who going about whatever means of worship and finding self and all these things. Do you see any noticeable difference, Imhotep, right, between someone that understand the difference between affirmation and prayer? Do you see any noticeable difference between somebody who not dealing with the definition of these words, but going towards what they're doing with a certain intention, versus a person who, okay, well, he understands the definition of word and he uses words in terms of, okay, the one who know the words and use the words, you see him progressing, and the one who just pray, who may not even understand the difference between the two, whether he get any result in terms of transformation in his character and things like this. Because for me, that's the bottom line of all these exercises. Bottom line. If a man come out of Mason and he 33 degree and he now manifest certain kind of thing, no special reason, you know what I mean, for think a kind of way because he have 33 on his sleeve somewhere. You understand? And at the same time, a man cannot go to Freemasonry, for example. And I'm saying that in the the present day description of things. And he go through whatever different school that he go through, and this guy manifesting the kind of character and so on that is like a Mason, like a person who go through that. It's like you recognize a certain quality in an individual who never come through the formal training of a Mason in terms of thinking and so forth, but you're seeing the person manifesting those thoughts. Do you see any noticeable difference? Like he's stuck.
Imhotep seems tired of
Are you
your
hearing me?
layer, so the
Are you
bedroom
hearing me?
fall asleep on your.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
No, he like this.
Imhotep stick, oh, I see the camera kind of stick.
Yeah, that's what happened for a while now, man.
Is it good now? Is it good now?
No, but you can speak. I
No,
think
but we can hear you.
itself. Yeah, true.
Okay, now we are moving.
Yeah.
True.
I know I'm moving. Okay, all right, give thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, all right. So there's a big difference, and we see it in even various religions, especially in Christianity. We see where people will go to, a building every Saturday or every Sunday, right? And they will put their hands up and say they are praying, right? But the words are empty because one, there is no connection. It's only an idea that they are praying to. When they say they're praying to Jesus, and he's Lord and Savior, that's just an idea. So therefore, they are actually saying utterances towards that idea. The difference with affirmation now, affirmation has to deal with what they would call as spiritual faith. And faith is the assurance that, whatever is said or whatever is affirmed shall manifest. I can affirm that I am success. I cannot fail. That is something that we have to put out there, because what? The word carries a vibration. You know, it carries a frequency.
I completely agree, but my question is specific to person, right? That
Yes,
may not
yes,
even have the vocabulary, but
yes.
they're living practically, and you're seeing them applying themselves in situation, and they're progressing well. I mean, you're seeing improvement. You might be somebody in your village that is not a mason or anything, but you go to some kind of art and you can see that he's going somewhere. He's transforming.
Yes,
Because
and
you see what the
it
words
is,
tend to do. The reason why I'm saying this, because what the
yes.
words and the keenness to definition tends to do is kind of negate something experiential on the part of a person who may not have the vocabulary and all the rest of it, but they
I
actually
understand
do
that.
it to do.
Yes, I
Okay.
understand that, and that's the reason why, right?
Mhm.
All affirmations must be in synchronicity with the law of causality. You get what I'm saying? Because it doesn't make no sense. We are affirming this and affirming that, and our actions are not in synchronicity with the laws of Ma'at, or the universal laws. So at the end of the day, if we want to pray, a person can pray. But if they follow the law of causality, if their actions are in keeping with universal law, then there will be positive manifestation, action and reaction, cause and effect. So what I'm saying is that our affirmations have to be in synchronicity with the law of causality as well. Because it
Both
doesn't
ways.
make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. We affirm the good and we are doing that which is evil, or
True.
that which is against, the forces
The
of nature,
principle, yeah.
our universal
All right. I
law.
feel true.
So I just want to tie that piece. It's important for us to understand that. Am I good now? Am I good?
Yeah, yeah, go on, go on.
Yeah, yeah.
Close up. Yeah, finish.
No. When speaking about masonry and the 33 degrees, it's important for us to also highlight the fact that the Eurocentric masonry is a plagiarization of our ancient African spiritual system, which was 360 degrees, 360 degrees spiritual, 360 degrees physical. I also want to emphasize this. We are souls having a human experience. Many of us, some people might agree, some people might not. Many of us have been here before. Okay?
Yeah, you gonna.
Many of us have been. Because we will go into the. Am I breaking up?
Yeah,
Or
you're
am I
breaking
good?
up. Yeah, you're
Breaking
breaking.
up. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Now, are you
No,
hearing me
true.
clearly now?
You freeze, but I hear you clearly.
Okay, I'm just saying that, right? We are souls incarnate. Still breaking up?
Go on, go on, go on.
No, I'm saying we are souls incarnate. And incarnation, reincarnation is nothing new. That is like public knowledge in times of antiquity. So this might not be our first journey. I know for sure this is not my first journey based on my experiences. When it comes down to knowledge, right? Our experiences are carried forward as well. So, I just want to put it out there that knowledge is not something that we acquire in this lifetime. We acquire information. But the knowledge, which people call the Akashic records or the Lamb's Book of Life, is something that is within us. We express that knowledge through our intuitive faculty. So I just want to say that we are not here for the first time. Many of us, we have been here multiple times. And if we have not mastered this material plane, then we're going to go back to the realms of undeveloped soul until another body is ready for us to come back again to learn these lessons. That's a part of life. That's a part of the cycle.
Emoted.
All right, Jojo.
Yes, yes,
Was there, we go see, I go close up the thing right now, so I go give everybody about 2 minutes to give the bill. So next in line is Wasero. After Wasero, Manai, you will go through. Wasero, go on now.
Yeah. Yeah, good discourse. Um, what shall I say? Okay, my emphasis, a lot of my emphasis goes into study of origins and African history and learning this abstract thought from Africa instead of using the Kabbalists, and because all these foreign forms of masonry were established at a time when slavery was still being practiced by those same people pushing the Eurocentric form of Freemasonry. And in going back to our African system, as Imhotep said, we have incantations, we have affirmations, we have crystals, we have herbs, we have backs, we we use the moon, we use the planets. So that system is a very intricate system of knowledge that has been passed down. And when going, I have this book here, which is a Rosicrucian book, and it has different pictures, Madame Bank Stacy, and I want to show some symbols. And there you can see the Kemetic, the oldest of them all, Min Kepera, the enduring manifestations of Ra. Here you see all the different crosses. So you see that all this Eurocentric thought came from the banks of the Nile. And even though we attempt to go through the doors of Masonic thought, we have to remember that there's a cultural perspective that sways the sentiments of the people. And we have to go into the current psychology of the masses. Because you cannot master yourself under duress, under a foreign ideas, a foreign concept of life. So most likely you go in and use these tools, your concept of self-mastery is self-aggrandizement, not really communal living. So I think very important for us to go into the field of psychology, which is linked to abstract thinking, and we go into it from an African perspective. And I think Rastafari is more driven on that African thought, though our expression may come out Judaic or Christian, but our sentiments, which is, I think, the more powerful aspect of a human being than his thoughts. So we have to find the right expression for our sentiments. And that is why we go back to our African philosophy. So we know the difference between the spirit, the soul, the personality, what remains, what goes on, what is reincarnated. And going into this, we realize that life is something that has no opposite, but it's a continual evolution through the womb and the tomb, you know? And in seeing this grand design, the actual knowledge of self is the actuality destroying the destruction of the or the subduing of the ego, which is where the idea of self comes from. You know?
Give thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uncle Jasineb, Duawu,
Yes.
Emiyaku.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. I seen when the reasoning going on, you just have to just wait your turn because we're trying to give everybody a chance to reason. You check what I'm telling you? Yeah. So right now is the I turn. Right now is your turn. I'm just saying, but just give some closing words because we're still in the old vibe still, you know? Yeah, man, go through. Okay. Just unmute yourself and go through. Give thanks.
Yeah, give thanks. Lot of things still had to address, but still leave
You
it to
sounding low.
even even
You
I seen a
sounding
lot of
low.
things I had to address still, but leave it for next time. Maybe we need to continue the reasoning. But what I saying, even if I listening a while ago, I used certain names and I was showing the bedrooms that even with us saints, like sometimes we just some of the things that sound nice because that's where the whole literalism that's coming, and the whole theoretic thing, It's like it's like we teaching, yeah, give thanks for all the knowledge because we need to gobble all the knowledge back. But to show literally what's really taking place, for instance, I could say, I was coming and say something. The whole thought of just the whole Rastafari like being like somebody saying, like the brother said a while ago. This one I just wanted to address before I go. Just I respond that the Ethiopian World Federation is the only organization that the emperor really kind of ordained or whatever, and then you maybe heard the Naya Bingi brothers say maybe through the experience with the king giving them these gold medals that the king give everybody the day he came on 1966 is like an initiation for them, so people run with everything. Now I'm saying the whole concept of Rastafari to me is a Jamaican thing. It's not, that has nothing to do with what His Majesty did or if he had locks or anything. It's the concept of the locks and the beard and the not eating of certain foods, staying away from the system and all these things. That's not a Haile Selassie kind of movement. That is a concept that was made in Jamaica. So there's a difference between we looking to see what Haile Selassie ordained, and if you think, to me, we passed that level of understanding. And I just want to say something again. Even with the idea of, I still hear people saying that the Bobo and the Dingy and the 12 tribe and the things separated. No, brothers, they are Bobo and Bing. You see the same thing we're doing there right now there, and in different little Zoom meetings, they're getting together and reasoning and trying to bring the economics together. Even I could, mention, so I don't even really want to mention it, but there's a lot going on different levels with Rastafari. Some of the ideas, like you could see, Brother Ison is one of them. I mean, a representative of it. Some of the ideas that people think that Rastafari was carrying back in the day, maybe in the early 80s or 70s and coming to the early 90s, think we have grown out of these ideas. We have evolved out of these ideas. And some people think we're still on that same, like what the brother would say, Judeo-Christian. Now, I would say something. Most people I see in the conscious community does two things. I think we need to clear up sometimes. People act like if somebody is using the Bible, they're religious, right? Because, I mean, I could conversate on any levels to me with anybody. It doesn't mean because maybe I'm praying through the Psalms, that means I haven't grown mentally, or maybe my consciousness still on a certain level. All that is just, to me, we like I say, we shouldn't be the judges to these things. These things is a level of growth for certain people. So seeing it as a Judeo-Christian movement, I would say still we still have the Ethiopian Bibles. So I mean the Ethiopian Bibles is still like gays and that's Ethiopian languages. That's like old languages and these things that even the common man not even using anymore. So to me, to say because we're using Bible with Judeo-Christian and these things there, I would say we have grown surpassed that level of understanding to a certain extent. And although I wouldn't for everybody, I know they have certain people still in that kind of mindset. You know what I'm saying? I know plenty, maybe majority you could say maybe in that mindset. But I just saying we have grown surpassed that idea of just, it's just maybe the man alone, like everybody I seen everybody is saying like it's just Haile Selassie alone and these things. Because to me, I could tell you as a Bobo Shanti member, we just give thanks to everything. Everything. Which one should know that? Give thanks to the sun, give thanks to earth, sky, and sea. Give thanks to, it's not just one set of thing. We have
All right, I said I will let you give your closing statements. The Bedouin,
Let me
yeah.
just close. Let me just clap back on. Let me just clap back on what the brethren say there. It's all good when speaking of these things on an individual level. It's all good. If we can, but Rastafari have to come to a conclusion. What do we teach our children? It's all good you say, okay, use the Bible for this and this, that, but now that the doors of our African history, we're getting out of
Yeah.
this 400-year room. Man, I hold on, eh? What I'm saying is that although we speak of the Bible and these things of the abstract, but we have to come to a conclusion. What do we teach the children? Do we teach creationism? Do we teach evolution? Do we teach Bible? Or do we go into the Husia, the teachings of our sages like Kagemni, Anshishonki, Amenemope? If we have to be true to this African Renaissance, because remember, we are just learning our African history. It was not open to our elders before us. So now that we're getting this knowledge of our ancient past, which will become our ancient future, do we still be knocking on that Bible, start trying, although there is so much patriarchy and so much different cultural perspective contradicting the African paradigm, do we still try and squeeze some essence out of it when the halls of the temples of Ma'at are open to us?
Yeah,
So
good man.
for us to endure, we
Let me answer.
have to go back to our African system, because it has to do with what do we pass on to our children? What do we teach?
Yeah. So still up, man, because you were going through and then you had drop
Yeah,
off
I
and
agree
then
for
you're gonna let
everything
Tyson
Osai is
go
saying, you
through.
know.
Yeah.
And it's just that I understand that the people are locked in the Bible still, and the Bible has different aspects that we still have to reason about, because most people that talk about we should maybe just stick to African history, they still end up speaking of the Bible even more than people that even using the Bible. Because the people that even biblical and religious like with this thing, because to me religious is just a fourth way of being dogmatic about something and don't do anything else. And then you sticking a fourth with that the pastors and all these things that are, you know, is dogma that's been passed on for how long. So even in the Rasta nation, a man will say maybe Rasta thing, but you could see the culture is more important than just even the religion, because the culture have been spread all over. I mean, it gone through geographical boundaries, you know, and it's not what we say. Like most people that even saying they are Rastas, not even really into the whole ritual, the real ritual what the elders left behind of Rasta. Is just, you know, the locks and maybe, you know, and just call the name and maybe just, you know. So I see it as like I say, a reforming movement. It's like I would say the fulfillment, like I always saying, I see Rastafari as the fulfillment of all the spiritual understandings, even if we or the theological, or everything as that fulfillment in the time we're in, because of the different aspects. To me, it's like a uniform, what would I say, a cosmic expression of colors you see when you see red, black, and green, the rainbow colors, and you know what everybody's saying. And now they're saying chakras and people saying they're rainbow beings. When you go and study, even what you're saying, all the African gods, they're rainbow gods. They are the main, even the head creators, the main gods are rainbow gods. And then when we watch our elders, what were they portraying? Is the same rainbow. And I'm not talking about these rainbow people. I'm talking about our elders, which one should know them. Yeah, it's the rainbow.
You're doing the same thing
So
again, man.
people, the consciousness that we bring, and certain people saying they go to the next side. Imagine these colors like I have purple on my head. Every week we have the rainbow colors on our head. Literally.
Yeah, just seal up for the next version to go through.
So yeah, man. So I just say, you know, and just the last for my closing. You see this? I just wanted to show that, you know, literalism again. See this, brothers? This is your foreskin of your penis. This is the head of your penis, and this is your the skin. Sorry, the skin.
Yeah,
the skin of your penis. This is a phallic symbol, literal phallic symbol, right? That maybe a man might ignore. I just showing you. Nobody can deny it. Look at your foreskin, a circumcised penis.
True,
the stellars, right? And it's like a bulb, right? Lighting up different colors every day, just like the chakras, and just like maybe the mystical colors you see when you
Yeah.
maybe spray your rainbow. So just give thanks, you know.
All right.
Let me
Give
say,
thanks,
enjoy
kid.
the reasoning. Give thanks
All right.
again, you know.
I said, go through,
Yeah,
man.
man.
Yes, Rastafari. Well, that one then on a really humorous note, they must say Rastafari. Yes, but yes, to follow up Jed and Wazir's friend, you understand? The whole question of what we teach, critical. You understand? Really, really critical to that step in growth that required. I'm a term it required at this time, or just the time that we're in. You understand? You see, and so I man just want to follow up on that, but I man also want to touch on this whole attitude towards the Bible. You understand? Because I mean, I man understand our attitude towards Christianity and the Bible. You understand? In just what we suffer as a people, African people, and that the Bible used basically for blind out, for dumb you down, make you docile, all these things that we all know so well, right? But we have a baby in the bathwater situation here where this Bible is concerned. One would have to admit, because I don't think no one would really deny that the stories in the Bible have are encoded in divine principle. I think no. I mean, listen. When you watch certain things are mentioned in the Bible, and you see events, you see things that happen among people socially that make you constantly have to reference the thing there. Reference the thing there. Reference the thing there. When it comes to somebody who want backstabber, we just automatically have to say Judas. Judas. You can see that there are principal teachings inside there that are actually a part of the reality of the human experience. You understand? And to me, in the midst of all that we are doing to become more African, sometimes we speak to the Bible in a kind of way that make it sound less valuable than it really is. And we really have to admit to the fact that this Bible have a positive side to it. I man can say that as a man come to the Bible, and right now me advocate for more was here reason about pure African stuff. You understand? But at the same time, I'm an whole chatting and process in part one product of the same Bible thing.
Okay. Give thanks.
So they have some level of value and worth to it. And to me, the best thing we can do when speaking about the matter is to admit to these. You see? Because to the people who have the hard experience, when you talk about the Bible in them terms, they're like in nothing. Them not differently, because the experience make them know. You see what I say? So
Sure.
while we are going through, let's take the time to do that. Because even me, who really would rather go by validating the king via different means, you understand? I man can effectively do it using the Bible. You see what I say? Because the symbol isn't there the same way. You understand? So yeah, I man would wish to say that, but at the very same time, just giving more strength to what the brother here was here put forward still. The brother share undocumented his with me, called the a journal he had that he shared with me. And I man reach to the journal, and the man have a whole roadmap really as to how I and I supposed to approach things, what we should teach, and one well thought out document the man have. I mean, in a very elaborate, but he touch all the right cards. You see what I say? And I man totally support that kind of move as a matter of education. You understand? Because you see, we're trained to really in a kind of Christian kind of thinking. You know, that the Bible is the only way, and if you're not deal with Jesus, you doom and all the rest of it. And even though we come Rasta, we tend to, in a certain way, carry over that same concept and say it from the Rasta direction and say, if you're not say Selassie, you're not say nothing or whatever. That same kind of mentality with us, it's gold and green it over here. You understand? And that whole idea kind of lock us off from acknowledging the value in the indigenous African spiritual systems. You understand? One of the things after Ayman come to realize, no man, this is not the truth about the matter. This is divine principles taught in these lessons in this book. And Africa have tons of proverbs and all kind of stuff that do the very same thing. And so, some of the proverbs are much more beautiful in terms of them words and so forth. You understand? So then we have no need for really a shock out with this thing that bears so much resemblance of the colonial master. He designed this thing. All of the aesthetic about this religion, he made this thing. You understand? All religion is built upon these principles, generally speaking. You see? So what we deal with now, we want one that is built, that we want an African design built upon the principle, as opposed to the European design built upon the principle. That's what we actually want. You see? So, you know, that would be my input where that is concerned. We have other points that are, you know what I mean, I guess we can just fear them off as agree to disagree until such time as we reason again and we can pick up on them. But I'm going to give thanks for the reasoning as per usual. Love and respect to all ones.
True, I said. Imhotep, you can go through your closing statement.
Yeah, man. I just want to say this real quick. Life is a journey with no destination in mind. You
Love
know,
that.
there are many avenues, but there's no destination. There's no final destination because we're always evolving. There are many different degrees of knowledge that we have to embrace. We cannot limit ourselves to a certain identity only because knowledge is universal. So, you know, yeah, man, we have to study a little bit of Masonry, we have to study our spiritual system, but we also have to study the usation of our ancient African spiritual system. Now, when we even speak about the Bible is not a religious book. The Bible.
Yeah, brother Joe. Yeah, I'll set it up still. You know, I said 15 minutes and I see we done run a whole half an hour, almost 45 minutes going through still.
Let me just add a little piece and say the African God is not the God of the Bible. I'll say it again. The African God is not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible is the colonizer's God.
True.
That gave people land and tell them that's theirs. And even though there's people on it, they told them to go and take it. This is exactly what the Europeans did with the Bible and the gun. And everywhere they go, they put the cross, showing you that their God sanctify what they're doing. They were only following the mimetic ideation coming from the Bible.
Yeah, but I just say you think Rastafari Radista is a English like a God, an English God, like how we saying God, because we understand who God is, you know. It's not like we understand who God is. We know even from the names Bobo and all the Naya Bingi, all these things is African names. These not no European names like we inherit with the Jesus and all these things. So you know it's a level of understanding still. You'll see a man.
The Bobo is Jesus. The Bobo say. The Bobo say Jesus. And the Bobo say.
We say Jesus. We never say Jesus, my lord. We say Jesus. There's a different understanding. You see, that is where it coming down to the man being part of something and understanding certain things. Even Richborn would understand to a certain extent. Even the word Jesus, when we use it, we have different levels of understanding. Even the word Jesus.
The thing
am I high honorable?
I say not to allow the reason to go on, but I say with the Bible talk and the justification will come a kind of way. Just now, let me have a word this still. I see we going astray off the topic really, and it was supposed to be closing words from everybody in regards to the knowledge of self and should still one worship still. You know what I mean? I can actually say that the Bible is also partly responsible for taking away that knowledge of self from us because it was used as one of the tools by our slave masters to beat out our African ways and our spiritual systems from us. I understand that a point in time came where we had to use it. It was the only book we had. You understand? But if we are to now identify with an African worldview, we can see it will cause a battle with that Bible. And I think that's what a lot of us need to wake up to. I mean, we understand, yes, they have certain truth and elements of truth in there. But as the elder alluded to, although he don't like to be called an elder, there is African literature family that is even just as great as that very same book. It's like the attachment again to that book, really. You understand? And I understand that our people are trapped within the book. So most times we have to go to the book, right? To give them the deeper understanding, to bring them out, but not replace what the colonial masters gave us with something else and still making us have that external source or identity of divinity. You know, the how is a give thanks. Yeah, so a lot of things was touched upon. The I also said that, you know, anything you do on a regular basis is your religion. While I concur, you know that the religion we're speaking about, man, is that religious practice in regards to worshiping that external deity and just worshiping. You understand? Because in my view, the movement not even really supposed to be on that level there like that. As Aison said, new faculty of reasoning, new interpretation, come and just transcend them borders there for even focus to be on different things. And as Wasim said, to know what we are really going to teach our children. Because I can be teaching my youth about Pluto was there in the same way Pluto moved, the moves the last in the thing, and then to me, they're just too off with the thing there. Now, in my view, coming back to the question, with knowledge of self, can one worship an external source? Again, have to do with degrees. And I agree with Imhotep really, even though he dropped out, that when you come to a certain level of degree, while I myself still give libations in veneration to my ancestors who have passed there, I still draw that demarcation line in regards to worship or see as some kind of, you know, God Almighty there like that. So again, it's different levels in understanding because we're part of the all and we all is the all really. So I give thanks for us, Aison, once again. It's a pity I have to cut it short, you know, already Sunday, the family there, you know, the little one and vibes. Hopefully we catch again, perhaps with a part two. Well, Sarah, I give thanks for your wisdom and, you know, your sources as usual. Man, I give thanks even though you kept dropping in and out. Give thanks for your bills, you know. It would be nice if you can stay on one topic and deal on it still instead of jumping, you know, left, right, and center still. So this has been again another Melington Empire family. Give thanks for all of those who was with us, Facebook and YouTube. Peace and love to the family. Continue on that quest of knowledge of self, you know, to be that better version of yourself. And which Ison alluded to, you can still have that brotherly love or whatever, despite your belief like that. Because we only have these reasonings to attain a higher level of understanding and perception, even within ourselves collectively and even individually, as we are still unitary particles of that divine consciousness. Peace and love, Uncle Justineb, Hotepu, my brothers. Peace and love to the panel. Give thanks, all those in the comments. Peace and love, family. Link up next time. Peace.